And just as I reached the exit door, I felt a hand grab my shoulder. I screamed. I spun around, heart pounding, fully expecting to face one of the general's men, or worse, the general himself. My mind raced, imagining all the horrible things that could happen in the next few seconds. But it wasn't the general. It was the guard from earlier, his face tight with worry. He wasn't trying to arrest me. In fact, it looked like he was more afraid than I was. "You need to leave now," he said, his voice barely a whisper. He shoved me toward the exit, his eyes darting around nervously, as if expecting someone to appear from the shadows. I could hear the distant sound of footsteps. They were coming, closer and faster. My body went cold with fear, but I didn't have time to think. The guard pushed the door open, just enough for me to slip through. I was outside, but the terror hadn't left me. It was no longer just fear. Now it was survival. The cool night air hit my face, but there was no comfort in it. I looked around and saw shadows moving, watching me. I could feel eyes on me from every dark corner. My heart beat so loudly in my ears, I wondered if they could hear it too. The State House, once a place of power and order, now felt like a trap. The shadows felt alive, closing in on me with each step. I kept my head down, walking quickly but trying not to run, trying not to look suspicious. But who was I kidding? They already knew. In the distance, I could hear more footsteps, more voices. They were getting closer. Every flickering light, every echoing sound in the night sent my mind spiraling. Who could I trust? I had seen too much. I knew too much. And now, I was marked. Just as I reached the outer gate, a voice broke through the stillness. "You're in deeper than you think." The words were like a jolt of electricity, freezing me in my tracks. From the darkness, a figure emerged, half hidden by shadows. It was a woman, dressed in plain clothes, her face partially obscured by a scarf. The flickering streetlight barely lit her face, but I could see the seriousness in her eyes. "You're not the first to cross paths with the general, but if you want to survive, you need more than luck." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I stared at her, unsure of whether to run or listen. "Who are you?" My voice was shaky, barely audible. "I'm someone who knows the truth," she said, glancing around as if we were being watched. "And if you don't listen to me, you'll end up like the others." The weight of her words pressed down on me. I had no reason to trust her, but I had even less reason to stay in this place. I had already seen what happened to those who knew too much. "They are coming," she said urgently. "We need to move. Now." She led me down a narrow, dimly lit alleyway, moving quickly but carefully, as if she had done this 100 times before. The State House seemed to disappear behind us, swallowed by the night. We walked in silence, the tension between us thickening with each step. Finally, we reached a rusted metal door hidden behind a crumbling wall. She pushed it open and beckoned me inside. I hesitated for a moment, but something told me this was my only chance. Inside, the air was thick and stale. It smelled of damp concrete and old secrets. The woman didn't waste time. "What you saw? That ritual. It's nothing compared to what's really going on here." Her words sent a chill down my spine. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "The general's power, it didn't come from the people. It didn't come from the military, either," she said, her eyes flickering with something I couldn't place. "Fear, maybe. There's something darker. Something older. And it's been controlling him from the shadows." I stared at her, my mind struggling to catch up. "Forces." I echoed, the word feeling foreign in my mouth. "You don't believe me now, but you will," she said, stepping closer. "It's not just about power. It's about control. And those who get in the way, they disappear." Before I could ask anything else, the sound of footsteps echoed from the alley outside. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. My heart stopped. They had found us. The woman's eyes widened in panic. "Run," she hissed, grabbing my arm and pulling me back into the shadows. We sprinted through the dark corridor, our footsteps echoing against the stone walls. The sound of pursuit was growing louder, closer. I could hear their voices now, barking orders, closing in. My lungs burned with every breath, and my legs felt like they were going to give out, but I couldn't stop. The woman was fast, weaving us through narrow alleys and hidden passageways I never knew existed. But the footsteps behind us, they never slowed. Just as I thought we had lost them, the woman yanked me into a narrow gap between two buildings. We pressed ourselves against the wall, trying to disappear into the shadows. I held my breath, my heart hammering in my chest as the soldiers ran past, their heavy boots pounding the pavement. My mind was screaming at me to move, but I couldn't. Not yet. The footsteps faded, but the fear didn't. I could still feel the weight of their presence, lingering just out of sight. Suddenly, the woman's grip on my arm tightened. Her eyes locked onto something behind me, and before I could react, I heard it, the unmistakable sound of a gun being cocked. I turned slowly, dread washing over me like a wave. There, standing in the shadows, was the general. He stepped forward, a smile playing at the corners of his lips. "I told you," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "There are no secrets in my house."